Good morning and welcome. Good morning from me, good afternoon, good evening, and good night for those of you all around the world. We've got about 16 folks right now, which is great, from all over the world. Why don't you tell us where you're checking in from and in the chat? I'm always curious to see who's the furthest away. I am in central Illinois, a couple hours south of Chicago. Today's webinar is on organizing documents and variables in MAXQDA. My name is Dr. Michael Gillespie. I'm a professor of criminal justice. I am a political scientist by training at Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois. Again, 2.5 hours south of the windy city of Chicago. I'm a certified trainer for MAXQDA. I do consultations, virtual workshops on a variety of tools, and of course, what are almost regular weekly webinars. My newest book is co-edited with Dr. Stefan Rodecker, The Practice of Qualitative Data Analysis, Research Examples Using MAXQDA. This book is available for you for free from MAXQDA Press. It's a wonderful resource. There's a variety of top titles there. That's what makes one of the things that makes MAXQDA great. Are all of the tools available to you and the resources for study. And if you want a print version of our book, you can get it from Amazon right from the MAXQDA Press page. There's a direct link. You can reach me about consultations at mgizzy@gmail.com. That's the email I use for this sort of work. Let's see. We have folks from all right, North Carolina, India, Qatar, Italy, Vancouver, Nairobi. Awesome. Awesome. All over the world. Well, half the world there. No? Yeah, most of the world. If we go India, yeah, you're on the other side of the world for me. That's fantastic. Lithuania. Turkey. It's good to see folks this morning, or at least to see you in Germany, of course. If you are new to MAXQDA and do not have the software yet, you can get a 30-day free trial from maxqda.com/trial. That will give you full access to the full program, including the Analytical Pro program. If you have any questions, you can contact the great staff at Verbi in Berlin at freewebinar@maxqda.com or use the website contact page. maxqda.com/contact. I don't know, I'm assuming this incentive is still going on. The MAXQDA blog is a wonderful resource for folks in terms of sharing the amazingly diverse amounts of research that is done with MAXQDA and the uses of different tools. If you're interested in sharing your own research and writing an article for the MAXQDA blog, send an email to research.network@maxqda.de, and they will, you might get sponsored with a free license. So check it out. Speaking of the Research Network, if you're not a member of the Research Network, why not? Only one more email a month, that won't kill you, I'm pretty sure. Gain access to new teaching, training materials, part of a broad, really vibrant research community that uses the software all over the world. maxqda.com/research network. Today's topic, organizing documents and variables. We're going to take a deep dive into how to examine how to use MAXQDA in terms of bringing your documents in It's not a webinar on how to import, although I'm going to talk about importing data for just a few minutes, and I'll show you one example. But it's about once you have documents in MAXQDA, how do you use them most effectively? And then we're going to tie in and discuss and demonstrate some of the key tools that you can use with documents for mixed methods research, document variables. I'll use some PowerPoint. I'll jump back and forth to a variety of, of demo projects. Some are actual projects that are in work right now. MAXQDA is a tool, just as a refresher, before we jump into organizing documents, importing data. You can import all sorts of different types of data into MAXQDA, whether they're text, PDFs, table documents, transcripts, focus group transcripts. You can bring in images, audio, video. You can directly bring in survey data from tools like SurveyMonkey. You can bring in actual tweets using Twitter data. And if you have resources to go beyond the short window that the public API allows, you can bring in lots of Twitter data. Metadata from YouTube, web pages using the Chrome extension web collector, and a variety more, and reference manager data as well. Documents from spreadsheets are a wonderful way to bring in interview data, survey data. You need to import documents before you can organize them. What you can import is pretty broad, and I apparently just went over all of that. Excel files can come in as tables, or they can come in as survey data. Images will come in direct. Audio and video files you can import, and you can import them and store them in external files so that they're not inside the actual project file themselves, which keeps the size down and the actual database to be structured data. Keeps the size down and enables you to kind of keep MAXQDA running efficiently. There's a question, what is structured data? Structured data is a sort of markdown text. I'll show you in a minute, but it's an ability to kind of tag data in using a very simplified form of markdown, and then you can import that. You can bring in reference software citations. You can actually you can export data from a reference software tool like Zotero or EndNote, and then you can import the citations, the abstracts, and even the linked PDFs of the articles. So there's a lot you can do. What you cannot directly import are PowerPoint files, but there's comma separated value text files, Apple Macintosh pages, numbers, or Keynote files. But anything you can save to a PDF, you can import. So if you have a PowerPoint, you can get it into MAXQDA. You just need to export it to a PDF. So in MAXQDA, we're using the Windows version. I'm going to open a blank file. There we go. Blank project. Just created it this morning. The answer that question, structured text. It's text that looks like this, uses tags. I never use it, but it's a tool. So in organizing and managing your data, once you get it in to MAXQDA, we're going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about document groups, document sets, code sets, and document variables. We won't talk much about code sets. We'll just mention it because the same ideas apply. And then we'll talk about document variables. let me show you, before I talk about document groups and organizing data, I'm just going to bring in some data into MAXQDA, okay? So I've got some files, and I'm going to just import these text Word files into MAXQDA. Just like that. I've dragged from my file, my Finder and my Mac, I just drag the files right into the document structure. So now I have a project that has, let's see, 16 documents. The reason I know that is I activated all the documents and I look down there, it tells me there's 16. Now, you can run projects where you just have your data under the heading documents. Okay. But oftentimes you want to sort out your data. You want your data so that it looks a little bit, it's organized better. So here is a this is a legal project, but here is a project I've worked on all of last year. Still need to publish it. And in this instance, our documents are, there's 231 documents. Yep, 231 documents, and we've organized them into two groups. All a group is as a folder, but it's the document exists in the folder. So you see state cases, and then all the names of the state cases. And then you see federal cases and all of the federal cases. There are also sets, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but let's start by talking about documents and document groups. Why would we want to organize them this way? Well, in this particular project, there are two types of the data that we have came from two very different types of courts. They were United States federal courts and they were state-based courts. And it was really important for us to be able to, for lots of reasons in our research, to be able to distinguish that. And organizationally, using the documents as document groups made a lot of sense. So let's see what I got here. So document groups are a simple way of organizing your documents. They can be used for analysis too, and I will show that with the Code Matrix browser in a bit. But document groups are an organization, or first and foremost, they're an organizational tool. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the idea of where a document lives in MAXQDA. It can be stored in one document group. Okay. You cannot have the same file in multiple document groups. They're like folders on your computer. You could make copies of the document and have it in two different groups, but then you're duplicating your data. Your document groups can also be nested into a subgroup like a folder in a folder. So before we talk about sets, so right here we have state cases and federal cases. If I wanted to, I could have, and I'm going to explain this too in a second, but I could create a new document group underneath state cases. But what you'll notice here, but I can only have two levels of document groups. So I'll explain this a little bit more. I don't really need these. Control Z, Control Z. So I can nest my data down two levels. Okay. Here's something to think about in terms of to get a better sense of what a document group is. In MAXQDA, if we want to see all of our what we call document variables, the data, this will show us exactly Forget the rest of this stuff right here. In a empty project, you know what? Webinar project. Project where we just added these documents. If I look at the data editor, notice the document group. It's empty. So this document, Arizona versus Hicks, all of them actually live in the root document group. So this is a document group as well. Okay. Does that make sense? It's just a way of thinking about it. It's all structured text. This is all MAXQDA is really a relational database that enables you to deal with documents and do analysis with them. I do want to point out one thing. These files here I brought in from Word files. MAXQDA can take all sorts of different types of text, but it is very, very efficient and it runs very well if you use Word files. So a document can exist in only one group, but you can have multiple document sets. A document can exist in several sets. Sets are just a sort of a shortcut. A document set is a way of access of just simply narrowing down the data further. So this is our empty project for now. Let me go to one that has, this is an old student project. You'll notice here we have a document group called Articles and Speeches. We also have a subgroup called Text About. This is all about an individual judge. This is all one group, kind of literature review. These are opinions, organized in majority opinions, the same ones we looked at before. By the way, when I single click on the icon, it activates everything in that folder. That's why they keep turning red. Dissent, majority opinions, dissenting opinions, concurring opinions. 3 types of written documents, okay? Notice here, we also have sets. So Justice Scalia's opinion in Wren versus the United States right there exists in that document group, majority. It also exists in the Fourth Amendment document group. I just opened that document, so that document's on the screen. Notice right here, it's also there. Now, I easily could have the same case in multiple sets. So say I had a document set, instead of irrelevant cases, I'm going to just rename this. Hang on a second. Could somebody mute, please? There we go. I have a set called key cases. And so say I wanted to have Wren in key cases. Now notice that this same case exists here and it exists here. The function of sets are really numerous. A document set is a way to simplify your data so that you can look at a subset, literally a set. It's a way to, so if I was interested in doing analysis only on Fourth Amendment cases, I would activate the Fourth Amendment cases, and those would be the only, those could be the only documents I did work on. So I could do visual tools, code relations browser, all codes, only for activated documents. I don't even know if I want that. I'm just, yeah, not really, but whatever. So I could do, yeah, no, that's fine. I can do analysis using the set. It's a, how is it different? You, again, the document set is, the document set is, you can have the document in many ways, in many sets, but only in one group. Okay, the group is basically permanent. Once you put it in a group, the assumption is it stays there. Okay, the sets, you can create sets a variety of ways. A document variable, a quantitative variable, and a set are they're very similar. They're very similar. I'll explain sets in a little bit, and document variables in a little bit, and demonstrate them. But I can use document variables to create sets. So I have a data set of cases that with a particular variable, and I can say I only want to select those variables. So they're very interrelated. A document can exist in multiple sets, as I showed you. Ren was in 2 sets. It's only in 1 group. I do want to show you that with the, remember when I showed you the data editor for the document variables? Forget the rest of this stuff here, just these. Now notice the documents exist in groups. Okay. You cannot edit the group that it's in from here. This is sort of a fixed tool. You don't have to see it, but it's just a way. You can sort by it. And again, we're going to come back to the document variables in a bit. If it's a fantastic question. If you make a change to one document that's in different locations, those are just shortcuts to the document. Look, I'm going to get rid of the code system right now. So back to Ren. Right, let me deactivate everything. Ren is the case I'm looking at here. It's right here. I actually, I do want the code system. I want to code the document. I add in a code here. This document is, it's all, I can access it from here. I can access it from here. I can access it from here. But these are just shortcuts to the document, which is right there. There are not multiple documents. It's one document stored in multiple sets. So it's, so hopefully that makes sense. So they're virtual shortcuts. And that's the best way of thinking about it. Shortcuts that you're going to use in oftentimes in analysis. There are a lot of projects where I don't really spend a lot of time kind of thinking, using document sets. It's not high on my list, but there are lots of projects where it can be really valuable. Okay. So why do you use document groups? To sort out different types of documents, to be able to conduct analysis by types of document. So if we want to distinguish between the types of legal opinions being examined, we went from this long list of cases here to, again, we've just seen this, broke the documents into those 3 groups. Okay. Let me show you a shortcut too, something's kind of cool while we're at this. I'm going to go back to that new project that I created. And remember, I had just brought those files in. So you create a document group with this little icon here called document group. You just create the name, majority, and I can just select and drag into that group. So now they're in that group. Now, if I undo that, I could also do it this way, one at a time. I can move them in. However, they're going to go in the order you put them in. They're not going to sort automatically. So you're going to want to kind of organize them how you want, and just by dragging in like that. So it's just mouse work, if you will, or trackpad work in my case. So let's actually start from scratch with this project. I'm just going to delete them all. Oops. Empty the entire project. I do have the majority group, it stays, but I'll get rid of that group too. Go back to my file folder. You see how I have concurrence, dissent, majority? These folders here on my computer, I can drag those directly in, and look what happens. I automatically have document groups. Voila, organized. So now if I look at the document variable list, every opinion in there is organized by the type. Make sense? So, let's see here. Hang on. So to refresh, how do I create a document group? I simply select where I want the group. So if I've got the majority file, the majority group selected, I would use this icon here for create new document group. Okay? I think that's the only way to get to it. Yeah, home. Yep, there's no other way to create a document group except from that icon right there. I just click it, it gives and automatically creates the group. It automatically names it consecutively. So there are 4 groups already, right? Group 5, 1, 2, 3. I don't know what 4 is. I know exactly what 4 is. Remember when I created a document group and then I deleted it? The project remembers that. So, and then I just rename it. I can create group 6, 7, 8, whatever I want. I can move the document group into a higher group, but I can't, I can move group 9 into the root, but I cannot have more than 2 groups. So if this case was in group 11 and I looked at it location in the tool, I would see I'm in majority / group 11 for that case. Does this make sense? Kind of straightforward stuff, but it's the type of thing that until you know how to do it, you really don't know what's going on. The reason why I keep showing the data editor is I think it's useful to realize that even the document group, the folder, really is just a variable. It's a type of variable that's visual in the program. Okay. So you can have majority / group 11 and then the document name, but you can't have majority / group 11 / something else. It only goes too deep. How did I delete that? I was just using a Control Z or Command Z on my Mac. Now notice, even though I was up to 11, if I go to create a new document group, it's going to be 12. I can rename, I can right click on a document group, I can rename it, or I can delete it, or I can create a new document group here from the context menu. So I'll delete it. If I want to create a new document group, I can go here, this little icon, or I can right click documents and say new document group. How do I create a document set? It's very simple. It does not have an icon up top. I just click on, I right click and I say new set. We'll just call it set 1. I can drag a case into a set, a document into a set, or I can right click on a document and say add document to a document set, and it'll say new set or set 1. So I can put it into set 1, it's there. I can take this document and I can add this to a new set, set 2. Rename the sets. Does that make sense? Fairly simple, pretty straightforward. So Minnesota versus Carter's in set 2. Right click on Minnesota versus Carter, add to set 1. So now it's in both. There has to be some analytical reason, why you would want to do that, but I can think of lots of reasons why. It'll become much more powerful when we get to actually using document variables. So those are your groups. One of the reasons for a document group beyond organization is for analysis. I showed this already, but I can use my document group as basically as an analytical tool. So I am, in this instance, I am looking at the interactions, the co-occurrences or the occurrences of codes based on document groups. A document set, that's a good question. How many levels a set can go down to? They don't work that way. A document set I can remove or rename. I cannot take this set. I can reorganize them, but they are simply, they're not tiered. They're not stacked. Because all a set is a group of a group that you've identified somehow. So 2 levels here, these are only 1. You'll notice the word set appears in your code system. Now this particular project doesn't have any codes. This one does. I'm going to add these codes, right click, add code to a code set, a new set. Actually, hang on a second. I'm going to do this again because I apparently already did this. Add codes to a code set. Surveillance tools. And it just becomes a quick way of activating codes. Why create a code set? Same, I often don't. But say I really just I want to look at, in this case, these are different types of crimes. I just want to look at the sexual misconduct cases. I could just simply use the codes for sexual misconduct cases. I could activate those 3 codes, and then I can use those very quickly in my analysis. Activated codes, top level code, and now, sorry, I had already activated a bunch of other stuff. They're convenience tools. I use sets. I don't tend to use a lot of code sets personally. I just tend to use I think of top level codes as a sort of a code set. So for example, here I have crime groups. And these are all the different types of crimes that I'm looking at in this project. And I sort of think of that as a set, but it's used for analytical purposes. But I can easily see a scenario where I go down here and say I want these here, activated codes, top level code. Now, without having to do much, those 3 that I know are important to my work, I have access to them just like that. As is true with lots of things in MAXQDA, there are lots of ways of accomplishing the same task. It's more about one's workflow. I'm just trying to show you what they are. But a set is in a document set and a case level set, a code set. It's the same basic idea. A code can exist in multiple sets. A document can exist in multiple sets. So let me show you a different example here. Notice here I have a set that's called sexual misconduct equals 1 and state equals 1. Basically, these are the state sexual misconduct cases. I can activate those documents, activate this, and then do that analysis. And it's going to give me the same thing, really, but activated code. So now I'm only looking at the data for the state cases. The sets method seems logical for organizing documents with specific concepts. Absolutely. If you're doing a thematic analysis and you've got 5 themes and you could create a set of codes that are related to a theme or documents that tie in, it's just a quick way of grabbing them. It's about organization. So notice here, I went from, now I'm looking at the code relation browser just for these state cases, because this was a set of sexual misconduct cases and state cases. I can redo this, eliminate the activated documents, So it's all documents. Now I get all of the cases, state and federal. Yeah, there's lots of great examples of how to accomplish this, of how to use sets. You know, when you have they can be extremely valuable. At this point, it's more important just to be realizing what they are, and then figuring out how they will work for you or not. Um, in this project, we really didn't. This one was really an example here. We didn't really use these as the primary tool in doing our analysis. And in fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm doing the webinar on systematic analysis with coded data, which is drawn from my chapter from the practice of qualitative data analysis. And this is the very project that we use for that analysis. So, so I wanted you to see all of that. So we talked about document groups, creating document groups. Again, to refresh, it's right there. We've done all this. Okay. Any questions about document groups or document sets or even code sets before I move forward? We're good? Okay. Hang on one second. Grab a little bit to drink. Now let's talk. Do docs or codes disappear if you delete the set? No, they do not. The set is just a shortcut. It's like a bookmark. You can delete the bookmark. The code still exists. The document still exists. Nothing goes away. That's a great question. When you look at a MAXQDA project like this, we've got documents organized into groups. We have a pretty complex code system. 231 legal opinions were content analyzed. Okay. For each document, we have a document browser. Each document could have a document memo if we wanted to. I think document memo is a memo tied to this particular case. So I'm just going to make it up. Say this was important to me. I'm going to copy that text and sort of qualitative information about the document. What a document memo is a way to add additional qualitative info or maybe a summary. So say you're doing a project where you've got interviews and you may want to qualitatively summarize the main points in an interview in a memo that you have easy access to. A document memo is one way of doing that. But MAXQDA also allows you, in addition to the document and its document memo, to have a series of quantitative quantitative variables that are tied just to each case. I will answer this question and then explain more about document variables. A memo is a note. A comment is an annotation on an actual coded segment. In a few weeks, I'm going to be giving the webinar on memos, comments, and paraphrases. That explains all of that. The very first webinar I ever gave. Nope, it's a combination of one. Maybe it's the second or third. So document variables, MAXQDA lets you create quantitative variables tied to individual documents. A document variable is like spreadsheet data or data in a statistics program. It can be a text data, it can be a number, an integer, it could be a decimal, a floating point, it could be Boolean, a true, false variable. It's really a checkbox in MAXQDA. And document variables enable you to provide more detailed information about a case, but even more importantly, they let you do analysis, mixed methods analysis, where you could, for example, create document variables, use selection tools to actually activate documents that meet the certain. Hang on a second. Phone's ringing. I'm just going to tell it to go away. There we go. That meet certain characteristics. You can do analysis based on, you can do mixed methods research using variables. You have to use variables if you're going to use what we call as mixed methods research. The document variable have their own menu, kind of ribbon, if you will. It's called variables. You'll notice that it's split in two. There's the document variables and there are code variables. Codes can also have variables that are tied to them. They're far less used, and I'll talk about them a little bit in before we end, but we're going to focus on the document side of this. So I've already actually gone into this several times showing you the data editor for document variables, but document variables look sort of like this. You have the document group, the document name, and then you have a variety of variables that have been added. Some are text, some are years. In this example, some are numbers. MAXQDA has a complete variable editor, which lets you add variables, add data to them. It shows you system variables and user variables, and it'll also show you what we'll call transformed variables, and I'll explain that as well. So I don't need the PowerPoint. Let's just jump in. This project has some variables. If I go to list of document variables, what I'm seeing here, you notice here some are red, some are green, some are blue. All right, the colors mean something. I'm going to click on the top and sort them. I want the red on top. Reset the sortings. There we go. What we see here, you notice there are system variables, document group, document name, what user created the document, when it was created, date, time, who last modified, when was it, who last modified it, and when was it last modified, and the number of coded segments and the number of memos in the document. These are built in, okay? So when we go back to that project that had nothing in it, right? Just the simple project here. This is what we have to start with. Notice to be displayed, these are all clicked off. I can turn them all on. I also have a shortcut here, list of document variables, and I have data editor. Click on the data editor. And now I see, remember before I just saw majority document group and document name, but now I see who created it, when, modified it. So if you have multiple users, this is valuable. Okay. Data editor, I'll go back in and come back to the default. So by default, you see this. You don't see the other variables, but they're there. List of document variables. This lets you switch on filters. We don't have any. We don't have anything activated right now, but it's valuable later. This lets you choose what columns will be viewed. This lets you search. This lets you import data. I'm going to talk about that in a second. This lets you, well, you're in the list of document variables. This is the data editor. This is the tool to create new variables, new user variables. Dummy one is a text, integer, decimal, date, time, or true, false. I'll leave it as text. We can specify a missing value if we wanted to, but we don't need it for this. We click OK. And now we have one that's blue. Okay. I can then go into the data editor. Now dummy one is there. So I could easily then go into any particular document and add in the info. So I've done projects where I had documents and I created a variable that I would identify while I was reading the document, and then I would just simply switch to the data editor and then go to that document. I do want to point out something here. I click on Murray versus United States, it automatically opens that document when I'm in the document variable tool. So if you're looking at a variable, it'll be highlighted. So, or if I'm looking at this case, I've opened this, I find the information that I want. So maybe instead of, you know, maybe I wanted to know who wrote the opinion. And I notice here, I'm in Griffin, but notice here, Griffin is highlighted. So I could simply go into that variable and type in Scalia if I wanted to. When I change, when I move my icon, when I move I select a different case here, that case shows up here, but unless I double click it, it doesn't get opened. So I can continue to create variables here with this tool here. This one's a Boolean, true, false. I set it to be displayed. Go back into here. Now it's just a checkbox. Now, if I were to export this data, it's going to come out as a 0 or a 1. Okay. But you'll notice, so we have the list, we have the data editor. You can only have one open at a time, so it'll switch. It's not both. However, import and export document variables. So if I want to export document variables, this is actually how I actually need to do this before I import. I'm going to export these variables. I've exported them to Excel. I'm going to go to Excel. See, I have variables export. Notice what ends up in the spreadsheet. All the information. Now, what if I want to create new variables? If I want to import variables, I don't want to work in the data editor. I want to work in a spreadsheet, which makes sense for a lot of people because think about it. What tool is better for doing spreadsheet work than Excel? These are the two columns I need. I need the document group, the document name. I simply copy those, or I delete this, and I can start creating document names and filling in the data. Through the magic of technology, voila, document group, document name. And you'll notice here I have a series of variables that I've created. Term of the court, citation 1, natural court, majority count, dissent count, ideology, disposition, opinion type, rating, and rate 2. These are fake. I just made these up so we'd have some numbers. So I've created data here. I'm going to go back into this, and I'm going to get rid of dummy 1 and dummy 2. I can delete it right here. Import document variables. I have a file called Scalia doc variables, the one I was just looking at. Click open. Now it's going to, it shows each of these new fields. It makes its best guess as to whether it's an integer, text, or decimal. I click import. Now look, I have all these document variables. Now let's say I wanted to fix these, edit these. I made a mistake here. I could easily double click here. Switch to liberal. I can edit here. Notice I cannot edit the document name or the group. The system variables are fixed. I can edit the document name, but I need to edit it here. Does this make sense? But let's say I made changes over here. All right, so 86, Arizona versus Hicks shows as 86 term. Let's just, for the heck of it, change this to 87 and say I made a bunch of corrections. I didn't, but say I made a bunch of corrections. Save that file. Import document variables. It's going to import and change only the changes I make, which I'll get it back so that it's correct. If I only bring in data on some of the cases, it's fine. It also doesn't have to be organized in the same row. As long as there is a document name that's exactly the same and a document group that's exactly the same, it's fine. It will figure it out. The reason why it's so important that you export the initial variables with the name and the group is so that you don't have typos. Because if I did this in the spreadsheet on my own, I was in the spreadsheet, and I put an extra space here, that would not be the same document. It would not identify that document because it's not the same. Makes sense. Questions about importing, creating variables. I'm not going to save that because I didn't really want to change that. So I got a bunch of variables. What do I do with them? Well, let me give you a couple examples. Under mixed methods, I have something called activate documents by variables. I could take natural court or term of the court equals empty. Say I only want cases from 1994. Notice here I have choices, activate or create a new set. So I could create a new set. Term of court is 1994. There's only one case there. Or I could activate the documents using that. Let me go to the project that actually has data. I can take year, and I only want cases from 2019 equal to. Notice because they're numbers, I could say smaller equal to. Can we perform meta-analysis using mixed method? I'm not really certain what you mean by meta-analysis, but you can do a whole lot with mixed methods. If I said smaller than or equal to, it would give me all cases from 2019 and 2018. If I say not equal to 2019, it'll give me all cases from 2018 and 2020. But I'll just say equal to. I can click new set if I want. So now I have my 2020, the 2019 cases, or I can just activate those. Once I have that set, or once I've just a lot of times I'll just do it this way. I'll just activate it. I want those cases. I activate those 87 documents, and then I do whatever analysis I want. Before I move forward, I want to show two other things. One, document variable statistics. I can select year and just do this for whatever purposes. I see the breakdown of my document variables. Okay. There is a third type of document variable, though, that I want to mention. If I take a code, armed robbery, I can right-click it, and you'll notice here it says transform into a document variable. I'm going to do that. Now look. Do you see on the end? Ah, it's not giving enough space. Armed robbery is right here, and it's showing me, I sorted it by accident, reset the sorting, zeros and ones. If the document includes the code, at least one coded segment, it's going to actually quantize it. You'll notice in the list of document variables, there's a third color that I forgot to mention before, and those are transformed variables, the green ones. So if I sort it this way, all of these green codes, all of these green variables are these are transformed variables. You'll notice crime groups and TPD groups are listed as categorical. Notice here, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is saying what was the group that this was in, TPD group, right here, and crime group. If a case involved multiple crimes, it is undefined because it doesn't know which one to pick. But that's a categorical variable. Why do I care about this? There's lots of mixed methods tools where I can use qualitative things by quantitative groups, use a document group. Just making it up. And I need to drag and drop codes there. Actually, I need to drag them in. I could do it like this. And now I can actually see, this is sort of an analysis tool based on the document variables. I have lots of tools that I can use, crosstabs. So I can do a crosstab. My federal equals 1, sexual misconduct equals 1. And now I have my codes based on these variables. Make sense? There's a lot more, and I don't have time for it today, but there's even more you can do with document variables in the stats tool. And this requires MAXStats, but MAXStats also lets you have the variable editor. Looks the same, right? But here, it gives you the ability to recode variables into new variables or into the same variable. And you can even compute variables. So Here we have the ability to do full-on statistics. Notice the tools available. But MAXStats is a separate webinar by itself. So once you start using variables extensively, you're going to want to have the Analytical Pro version of MAXQDA so you have the ability to do the full tools with MAXQDA. So notice we have variables and we have codes. So we can actually put codes here, homicide here. You know, I'm just making it up. I don't know. So we have the ability to do analysis. There's nothing to do there. Yep. Completely meaningless because I was just literally selecting stuff. But the point, once you start down the mixed methods path of using document variables beyond just activating documents, then you want to get into MAXStats, which is the real power. But the difference is this is all quantitative, whereas mixed methods tools in MAXQDA allow you to use a combination of qualitative data and quantitative variables. Well, folks, that is your introduction to organizing documents and looking at variables. There's much more you can do with this. Do you have any other questions for me? If not, have a wonderful day.